Okay, everyone. We've got some juicy stuff to talk about today. I'm going to blow some of your minds, which has never been said on this channel before, but I think I'm going to do it because this, as I thought, was a Langdon Beretta.
But it's not.
Insert just music like dun-dun, like I need dramatic music that plays when I say that. So I'm going to tell you what the hell this thing actually is, because it's actually a Beretta. It's not a Langdon gun, but I got confused, and I think you might even be confused too. So we're going to break it down and give you guys some helpful stuff on this. Couple things that you should do. One, we have another channel, and it's basically just turning into a channel where I drink and attempt to teach you some stuff about real estate. So if you would like to follow that page is called The Real Estate Paradox. I will do my best to remember to link that below, or if you're not lazy, just type in Real Estate Paradox into the search bar on YouTube and it's gonna pull up. We actually have a studio, it's very fantastic, and I get to drink bourbon because I don't have to shoot guns, and it's great. So there's that, and then kind of on that note, 1911 Syndicate, hey, the business behind all the gun shit and everything is actually buying and selling real estate and helping you do that. So if you ever need help, you can go to the site, reach out to us through that. Please think through your questions before if you wake up at 3 a.m. and you're like, I gotta ask them this, sleep until 7 and then see if you still have that weird thought you had 3 a.m. before you send us an email, because those emails take time, okay? And then, hey, we've got Patreon. If you really like us, which is like 3 people, but if you really like us and you feel bold, you can go donate to the Patreon. Now, enough about that. First things first, you'll see in the footage of shooting this gun, I'm shooting it one-handed. The reason for that is well, I think I have to take responsibility for this. I dropped a steel shooting target on my hand today, and we still have not gotten any medical care for this, thanks to the staff for not taking remote fucking care of me. But it hurts, and I can't really do much with this hand. Unfortunately, I'm also a lefty, so I'm not only shooting one-handed, but with like 60% of a full hand. So if I'm shooting like shit in the video, that's why, everyone. So relationship with Langdon Tactical. Really nothing. I did talk to them heading into this review because, as we'll go into in a minute here, I needed to reach out to go, guys, what the hell do I have here? Because I was very confused, as we kind of all were, as me and a couple friends looked at this gun. So I know them. This gun was not sent from them. It was actually loaned out to us from one of our Patreon subscribers. And he's letting us borrow it for a couple weeks while we do the review. Now, as mentioned, this is a review that comes with a plot twist, because I thought up until a week ago that I was doing a review on a Langdon Tactical Beretta. And kind of what happened here was I had an acquaintance, I will call him, named Jeff from RDR Kydex, a rough acquaintance that was at my home, which is a bold move for me to let him in my home. And he was looking at this, and I was like, yeah, I'm reviewing the Langdon. And he's like, yo, homie, or whatever. He tries to sound cool and youthful. Like, yo, homie, he's like, that's not a Langdon Beretta. And I'm like, pretty sure it is. It even says like LTT on the serial number. And so we were all confused. I reached out to Langdon and I said, guys, I'm doing a review on one of your guns. I'm just trying to figure out exactly what I have, because it's getting a little confusing. And they ran the serial number for me, and they looked at it and they said, no, you do not in fact have a Langdon Beretta. What you have is a factory Beretta gun. That essentially what we have here is in the model, just for everyone, 92G Elite LTT is the specific model, which is a little tough to remember. But they said, hey, look, what you have here is a factory Beretta gun. It's not a Langdon gun. This has never been in our shop. In essence, imagine Beretta, and I'm using a little bit of interpretation, so I'm a little off on this, no one get mad, but it's essentially like a factory Beretta gun, and Beretta licenses some of the features from Langdon, and then they put it out as a factory Beretta gun, and you don't have the price tag that you would have with a Langdon. That said, you could still send this to Langdon, you could do some of the upgrades and all that. So look, I'm gonna admit at the start of this, it does get a little confusing figuring out exactly the differences between this and then the Langdon, because you go to the Langdon site and they've got a bunch of different options you can use to customize these. It gets a bit confusing. We are working, I think I emailed Langdon last night to say, hey, look, I really would like to do the review on the Langdon gun, so if you guys can get something lined up for a review, that would be fantastic. So I do think, hopefully, but I think you will have that review coming in the coming months here. So a little bit of a tour. Okay, so what you've got here, so you've got I'm not a Beretta guy, okay? I need to preface that going in. I'm gonna reference some stuff because the Beretta fans of the world know all this stuff. Hey, if we start talking 1911s, I'm a lot more useful to you, but on Berettas, I'm a bit of a novice. Okay, so we've got an M9A1 frame. This is the compact frame, so it does hold 15 rounds as a standard capacity, much like a Glock 19. Think of this like the Glock 19 version of like a Beretta 92. So 15 round mags, you do have metal mags or steel mags, and they do have a nice little pinky extension at the bottom of them. Looking at this grip, I'm quite a fan of the grip. So it's kind of right in the sweet spot between, okay, it's not a thin grip, but it's not fat. It's kind of in that perfect zone, but it fits my hand perfectly. Okay, so when I grip the gun, right, the gun is perfect for me. Even with my support hand that's mangled from a steel plate falling on it, it's a perfect grip. Now, my disclaimer would be, as many people have pointed out, and it's quite creepy, I have like long, skinny hands, and it's odd that people notice that, but you do. And I guess, hey, do your thing. But if you've got really like thick, meaty, like big bear hands, this grip is probably going to be a little bit problematic for you, because not only is it going to be a little bit small, but then at the bottom you're going to have that pinky sweep. So in theory, your grip could be like, just coming over in weird spots on that little pinky extension. So for me, great, but hey, medium, long, lanky hands, that's kind of what I'm working with there. Full-size frame does have 18 round capacity, so hey, look, if you want to bump it up, get the big boy, which if you have big hands, I'd really recommend go for the full-size frame, 18 round capacity, so you got some legit capacity. The trigger, let's talk about it. So we've got a double to single. Let's just make our life easy here, guns clear. So the trigger, it's a double to single action. For those of you who might be newer, we try to assume that not everyone that watches our channel maybe is like super into guns, but you're learning. So a double to single is this. On the first trigger pull, you're gonna have a very long trigger pull, and then the gun's gonna go off. And then all the subsequent rounds after that, then the hammer is going to stay locked back after that, and then the subsequent rounds are just going to be a very short, nothing kind of trigger pull. The hammer, you will notice, is flat. That's just kind of like the standard thing on this particular model. It's, you ever hear something behind you and you're just like, you just got to give a check, everyone. So the hammer, I don't have much opinion one way or the other. I think my only con against this would be, well, what if I wanted to manually cock back the hammer, right? Well, I can't do that. So the only way to get that hammer back is to actually chamber the gun or take the mag out and, just dry fire rack the gun. So, hey, that's the only thing about it that bothers me. Of course, the upside of it is that you have less edges. If you were carrying this as a CCW gun and you're gonna draw it, right, you have less edges in the form of a hammer to be able to get caught on clothing or something like that. So, hey, look, I'm kind of neutral. There's pros, there's cons, but is what it is. The trigger is fantastic, and I think that that's one of the most notable things about this gun for me is I've been shooting this gun for the last few weeks going like, man, Langdon really does a good job on those triggers, right? And then I find out this is just a factory Beretta gun, and I'm like, it must have a cleaned up kind of enhanced trigger, because the trigger is great. I'm telling you, the double action trigger on this gun is, I ain't got the grip today, everyone, but the double action it's smooth. It would take some time to really get good and fluid with it, but it's really a nice double. And then the single obviously is easy. So I'm quite a fan of the trigger, and it really makes me go, now I really want to know what that trigger is like, because per what Langdon told me, like their trigger is like, it's pretty fucking wild. So the slide, so we've got a Vertec M9A3 slide. Again, not being a Beretta guy, that doesn't mean a whole lot to me. It might mean something more so to the Beretta guys. But we've got a 4.7 inch barrel that's kind of in that sweet spot. Actually, technically, closer to Glock 17 territory versus Glock 19, but 4.7 inch. It's obviously chambered in 9mm. We've got beveled sharp edges. So, sometimes you see that. People are like, hey, we bevel all the sharp edges. And then so you start kind of challenging them on that point, and you start looking and you're like, you know what? You guys really did kind of bevel all the sharp edges. There's really not much on this that's a snag hazard, especially with having things like the decocker. This thing is really like pretty nicely done. It is a decocker only. So for those of you that, Again, not super familiar with these. So this is not a safety at all. It's just a decocker. The safety is you not being an idiot. That's kind of how you keep the gun safe, everyone. But that's also a universal truth, so don't do stupid things with guns, everyone. Decocker is good, very tactile, no issues with that. Front and rear cocking serrations. So we've got the rear, and then we've got the front up here. They're not the most bitey, like they don't have the most texture in the world, but they're also fine. If you were gonna chamber off the front, no worries. You can chamber off the front, right? I'm lacking a little grip strength, so if you're like, God, that was the weakest rack of a slide I've ever seen, don't worry, everyone. Just, it's that kind of day. So easy to do press checks off of those serrations. The back gets a little trickier just because, hey, as you're grabbing, you're gonna have that decocker that's gonna get in your way just a tad bit there. What do we got? So we got a black on the sights, right? So we got a black rear with some serrations on it. The point of the serrations on the rear of the point of the serrations on the rear sight is basically help with glare. So to diffuse sun, if sun ever catches this and you catch a little glare, that's the point of serrations, in case anyone ever wonders that. It's not so much for like racking your slide off of anything. That would be serrations that are in the front, because obviously you're not worried about the glare on the front of your sight. You're worried about chambering that front sight off of something. Or the rear sight, I'm sorry. But the front sight, you've got a fiber optic front sight. It is very thin. It's probably a little too thin for my taste. I don't know what the aftermarket support is like, but if I was buying one of these, I would probably say, hey, look, the sights is something I would just like to see a little bit beefier sights. They're very thin, so they're gonna be pretty precise. It does take a little bit of getting used to for my taste though. MSRP is $1,100 on these. I do think street price, you can find them a little bit cheaper, but $1,100 is the MSRP. Sometimes people get mad when I talk about MSRP. Well, I'm like, well, yeah, that's the actual retail price. If you can find it cheaper than that, I'm not in charge of tracking all the prices on the internet. I'm in charge of looking at the MSRP. On the Langdon guns, the actual Langdon ones, if we just do kind of a cross comparison, well, what's different on the Langdon? Just kind of give you a quick breakdown here. So you got a shorter, smoother, lighter trigger. That's direct verbiage from their website, so I did not make that up. That's their words. They also have a red dot cut version, and they're the first ones to come up with a red dot cut for a Beretta, which is kind of cool. I mean, they're like, hey, look, when it comes to Berettas, Langdon is the shop. That is the shop for Berettas, to the best of my Beretta knowledge. Langdon's the place that you go, and they're the first ones to have a red dot option. Essentially, you're starting with this factory gun, and then you're just picking the different options that you want them to add. So you can kind of a la carte add some items or add some like packages of different things. Some of the things you can do, Spartan sights, I don't know what those are because again, don't have a Langdon gun yet. Their trigger, they've got MP3 coating, they've got a carry bevel, which I'm going to assume is a bevel at the back of the grip there, not positive, just a guess. They have this trigger bar that they do. Price range on those is going to range from like $1,000 to a couple thousand. So it's going to be a pretty wide range, and it's just going to depend on what kind of features you added to that. Okay, so final thoughts. Hey, look, it's really good. I will fully concede I enjoyed this quite a bit more than I was expecting to enjoy it. It's, you know, for those of you that think all your gun tuber people that you watch, like, we're not like professional, like, you know, for a lot of us, this is not our job. We're guys that enjoy shooting guns, and we kind of have our taste and our preference. I'm a 1911, 2011 guy. So what that leads to is, hey, look, you have some inherent biases. So sometimes you get in things for review and you're like, hey, I'll give it a fair shake, but I already kind of know it's not my thing. I got to admit, I really have quite enjoyed this, especially given that it's just a factory Beretta. Like, it's been quite good. But the only real kind of nuanced thing that I found is, hey, look, as a lefty, that trigger bar, if you'll notice that trigger bar there is going to move on the right side of the gun. Why that is kind of funky is, hey, look, if you're gripping the gun as a lefty, your support hand is going to kind of find its way there. So you'll actually feel that trigger bar kind of rub against your hand. So you might have to adjust your grip a tad. I don't think it's actually an issue. It's not like it's not a pinch point or anything like that, but it is just kind of weird as you're squeezing a trigger to feel something like scratching over your thumb. It's just a little bit odd, you know? But I guess one downside of this would be I don't think Beretta's really producing. I don't think they're going to have any more at least released for a few months at the time of this, which is we're filming this in July. I'm hearing that like September is when they might have some more of these coming out. So right now it's pretty much the resale market because I don't think anyone's getting in new ones. But hey, look, overall, very, very good. Really can't find much to nitpick on this. The thing that I'm leaving with is going, it makes me really excited to test out the actual Langdon. Like the actual Langdon, I'm really stoked to check that out now, because if they're gonna take this and do a bunch of stuff to make it even better, that's an interesting gun. And it's at a price that I still think is very fair for a Gucci pistol like that. So we hope to have that review coming, but what I can tell you is this factory Beretta is very nice, very legit for a $1,000 gun. Probably one of my favorite $1,000 guns that I've shot. So hope that helps. Be well and stay safe, stay off the streets, do all the good things, get the good grades. Although it doesn't really matter because you could still just build your own business even if you don't have good grades. But you know, hey, you do whatever makes you happy, everyone. See ya.
In 10 seconds, let's do kill, fuck, marry, Toyota edition.
I'll kill a RAV4. I'll fuck the new Supra. I'll marry a Tundra.